Hey everybody, Twin Dad here, and welcome back to Magium. It's been a while since I did one of these, because the last one I did, it was a long chapter. I was reading for an hour and 15 minutes, and I finally got done, and I think it was like 12:30 at night, or in the morning, I suppose, and I went and checked it, and I went and rewatched some of it and skipped through it to see if it was like not crap. And halfway through, I noticed that the video, for some reason, stopped recording my audio, and then it kicked in about a quarter of the way left, and then it had like an echo. So it was like me going like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." So I couldn't honestly upload that. It was awful. And then since it took so long to actually record the video because it was a long chapter, I was kind of sick, and I didn't even want to look at it for a long time. But and not only that, I had to go back to the first, and then I wrote down my yeah. See right here, yeah, right there. That's my stats. Yeah, see my writing's terrible. I understand that, but that's my stats. I had to write down, and then I had to go and put my stats in from what they were before in order to make sure it was right. And I almost skipped over the chapter I was supposed to read because I was just going through. So, because I was just like skimming. So, I'm not 100% sure if I actually missed a page, but I don't think I did. Because I just put my stats in and I came to this page, I'm pretty sure. So, this is where we start. I am almost 100% certain. Alright. See, I was used to reading it because I read it already. So, anyway, that's enough of my babble. So, also, I'm coming off of a cold, so if I sound kind of funny, or, I don't know, I randomly sneeze, or like, I don't know, whatever, then you'll understand why. So, here we go, finally. And I'll try not to rush through and sound like a babbling moron. Alright, here we go. As I finish using my stat device, Rose asked me another question. Wait, so if your stat booster extracts magical energy from other mages, does that mean that also eating away at Darren and Kate's powers? It's getting a bit of energy from every mage in a 30-mile radius, but the amount it takes from each of them is barely enough to mildly inconvenience them. Most of the energy it's getting is from the powerful spells that have been cast all around us since the beginning of this tournament, and that energy would have just dissipated into thin air anyway. So you could just say I'm recycling it, rather than stealing it. I think that I get interrupted by a very loud roar that echoes all around us. What was that? Rose asked, visibly scared. A second, louder roar now booms through the air as I can feel my hair standing up in the back of my neck. I've never heard this sound before in my life. I have no idea what beast might be causing it. So then, what is this feeling of dread I'm getting all of a sudden? Why do I find myself wanting to run as fast as I can, in any direction? As long as it gets me as far away from this place as possible. Shortly after the second roar ended, a very powerful wind started to blow towards us. I can almost feel it trying to lift me in the air. The trees are barely holding up, and it looks as if they could get pulled out of their roots at any moment. We're lucky that this happened while we were in the clearing, because otherwise we would have to also protect ourselves from falling trees, while trying to hold our ground against the relentless force of this wind. As some of the trees start to fall, a monstrous figure makes its appearance high above us, at least 50 foot tall, with very tough-looking red scales covering its entire body, and the wings the size of a long ship. Its claws look as sharp as blades, and its fangs are buried at us menacingly, but its overall appearance is much different from that of an overgrown lizard. A dragon, Wait a minute. Hold on, I'll be right back. So, that's my mistake. Apparently, I was reading the wrong chapter because I am stupid. I will be right back on the right chapter. But everything else still applies from what I said before. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, I am back with the appropriate chapter. For once. So, now let's start it. Okay, I think this is where it needs to be. Hopefully. Yeah, okay. I think this is it. Alright, round 2. Barry, I would like to have a word with you in private, Kate tells me, as the four of us are taking a small break near a river. I knew this was coming. I've been expecting it ever since we had this discussion about my stat device 2 hours ago. She barely spoke a word to me after that, and the look she's been giving me for this past hour has been sending chills down my spine. Whatever the reason for her sudden change of attitude towards me, I can't let things go on like this. We need to clear this up, one way or another. Alright, I say, lead the way. Kate goes on ahead and I start to follow her. But before I take my first step, Darren grabs me by the shoulder. Remember, Barry, 3 taps. The look in his eyes is dead serious. I realize he's talking about the magical transceiver he gave me last night, which I am still carrying in my pocket. He told me to tap it 3 times in case I'm in danger. I guess he must have noticed that something was wrong with Kate, with the way Kate's been acting for the past 2 hours. I nod to him and he lets go of me. I then go to follow Kate, who is heading deeper in the forest. We walk in silence for about a minute. How far are we going exactly, I ask her, but she gives no answer and continues to walk forward. After about another minute, she finally stops and turns to me, with the same cold look in her eyes that she's been giving me ever since we fought the dragon. Are you planning to tell me what? Kate doesn't let me finish my sentence and suddenly makes an ice dagger appear in her right hand, when she almost immediately puts to my throat. I try to step back, but I realize there's a tree right behind me. She is now pressing her blade hard against my throat, and I can feel a trickle of blood running down my neck, as my back is being pushed against the tree's trunk. If you make any kind of noise, I will slit your throat here and now. Do you understand? Yes? If you want to borrow some money from me, you can just ask nicely. Yeah, I want to be a smarty pants. If you want to borrow some money from me, you could just ask nicely. Shut up, Kate shouts at me, her eyes burning with rage. I've had it with your jokes, and with the way you always like to tread on thin ice, even when your life's on the line. Are you incapable of comprehending the situation you're in right now? Well, it's kind of hard, since you never actually told me what. Where is Diane? What have you done with her? Tell me. Her question caught me completely by surprise. I have no idea what you're talking about. Who is Diane? Kate shouts furiously at me, while tears are starting to form in her eyes. I trusted you, both you and Rose. Was this all part of your plan to capture me? Were you trying to get close to me so that you could catch me off guard? Is Rose working with you too? Wait, no, listen to me. Who are the other Lesathai? Are they waiting to ambush me as we speak? Are they all just waiting for your signal? She thinks I'm a Lesathai, the race that built the dragon trap. What's wrong with her? She isn't making any sense. Kate, I don't know what's gotten into you, but I'm not a Lesathai. Do you think I'd be wasting my time here trying to become a mage if I had the ability to build powerful magical traps and devices? You're lying, Kate yells at me. You are lying through your teeth. Humans could not survive with such a weak magical aura, and there is no other race that looks exactly like humans and possesses so little magical energy. Even if I am somehow a Lesathai, that doesn't deny the fact that I've been raised by humans and have never met these guys who captured you. Does this have something to do with the Beacon of Hope? I'm not working with any of them. Please tell me the truth. Sorry, please trust me on this. My bad. Why? She screams, while a tear slides down her face. Why should I trust you? What makes you any different from the rest of them? Why should I believe that you won't simply betray me like everyone else I've ever met in my life? Because I'm in love with you. Because that's probably a bad idea. Because I helped you when we were attacked by the crossbowmen this morning. If I wanted you either dead or captured, that would have been the best time for me to seize the opportunity. Kate is looking like she may be taking my words into consideration, although there is still doubt in her eyes. Suddenly, there's a sound coming from my pocket, and this time it's not my stat device. Barry, are you okay? Says Darren through the magical transceiver. Are you still there? I tap the device with my left hand in order to activate it and answer him. Yes, Darren, I'm fine. I'm just having a longer discussion with Kate. I'll let you know when we're done. Oh, okay then. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just getting started. I just started to get worried. That's all. Take your time. What was that? Kate asked me as I turn off the transceiver. It's funny. She's still holding her dagger at my throat as she speaks to me, but I find myself to be unusually calm about all this. I wonder if it's because of everything that I've been through since I joined this tournament yesterday. That was a device that Darren gave me to communicate with him in case of an emergency, I tell her. What? No, that can't be right. We have never talked about this during our strategy meetings. Why wouldn't he have also given me a device like this for emergencies? That's because Darren doesn't trust you. But you said, I'm sorry, Kate. I was afraid that you wouldn't believe me if I told you the truth. The fact of the matter is, I am the one who convinced Darren not to perform the purification ritual on you when we first met. No, you're lying. Am I? Aren't you the one who said Darren never looked at you as if you were a human being? Kate hesitates. Why would you, of all people? It's because of my sister, who turned into a banshee a long time ago. That's how I knew you were different. Do you really expect me to believe? She stops when she sees the look on my face. She must have realized that I'm being serious this time around. Ooh, this is getting pretty interesting. Yeah, this is tea, by the way. It happened 15 years ago, I tell her. Me and my family were living in a rather isolated village, where people didn't really know much about banshees and mages in general. When my sister started getting magical powers, we were all overjoyed because we thought we had a mage in the family. Then one night, I started getting flashbacks of the night when my sister turned to a banshee. It feels as if her sinister laughter is still ringing in my ears. One night, I came home to find the bodies of my parents lying in pools of blood, with my sister standing above them. Only it wasn't my sister anymore. Everything was different about her, even her magical aura. She was just about to kill my younger brother. Excuse me. She was just about to kill my younger brother when I picked a pitchfork from the ground and impaled her with it. I was lucky. The banshee had just awakened, which made her vulnerable. If I had arrived even a few minutes later, I don't think anyone would have been able to stop her anymore. I pause, then look at Kate straight in the eye. Darren's transceiver is made so that I can let him know when I'm in danger by simply tapping it 3 times. I could have done that the moment you put this dagger to my throat, but I didn't. For the same reason I didn't refuse to go alone with you in these woods, despite the obvious risks. It's because I wanted to talk things through with you, and make sure that we clear things up between us. Now tell me, Kate, do you still think I'm saying all of this just so I can gain your trust in order to capture or assassinate you? Kate's hand holding the dagger is starting to tremble, and a fierce determination she had in her eyes is slowly dying down. She lowers her dagger, and her gaze turns toward the ground on the left side. No, I don't, she answers me. I'm really sorry for everything. I'll ask if we're still friends, because there is kind of a need to apologize, because she almost tried to kill me. Are we still friends then? Friends, she asks me, shocked. She looks at me, trying to figure it out as if I'm being serious or not. You're insane, she says. I almost killed you. But you didn't. That's besides the point. I was ready to slit your throat at a moment's notice. And now you're talking to me about friendship. What's wrong with you? Are you completely out of your mind? Of course I am. Surely you must have realized that when you found out the true reason I joined this tournament. She's looking at me as if I can't believe the words that I'm saying. Now, are we friends or not? I say, as I hold out my hand to her. Kate pauses and looks at me hesitantly. Are you sure about this? She asks. Yes, I'm sure. Now come on, shake my hand already. My arm is going numb. Kate smiles at me sadly as she sniffs and wipes the tears from her eyes with her sleeve. You're an idiot, she tells me as she grabs my hand and squeezes it firmly. I know, I tell her as we finish our handshake. We should be going. Darren and Rose must be getting impatient. Wait, she says. I still owe you an explanation for all this. It's the least I can do. Does it have anything to do with the Beacon of Hope? Obviously. Can you first tell me yeah, okay. Can you first tell me who these Lesathai are? That's a tongue twister. Exactly. My understanding was that they were some ancient race from this continent that went extinct a long time ago. Yes and no. They are indeed the oldest race on this continent, which is why most people refer to them simply as the Ancients. However, even though their civilization fell hundreds of years ago, there is still a small group of Lesathai here and there, staying hidden and trying to influence events from the shadows. As far as I know, there are no records explaining the exact reason of their civilization's fall, but it is commonly believed that their own arrogance was somehow the source of their undoing. Their banner is, after all, a hawk holding the sun in his talons, where the hawk represents the Lesathai and the sun represents the gods, which is from before. Wait a minute, I recognize that banner description. You're telling me that Eden wants me to transmit his message to the remnants of some long-forgotten race? Yes, that is what I'm saying. I have no idea where he knows these people from, or what the meaning of his message is. However, I was under the impression that most people do not know the Lesathai even exist anymore. They are very secretive and are very isolated from all other races. They have their own village, hidden from the rest of the world, and they are only allowed to marry other Lesathai. This is why I'm very surprised you are unaware of your own heritage. Hopefully, only being allowed to marry other Lesathai, that there are at least like maybe 1,000 of them. You know, hopefully it's not like 12, because that would get kind of weird, and they probably wouldn't last very long, you know, because of inbreeding. Yeah, about that. Kate pauses. Do you remember how Eden said I was a survivor of the Beacon of Hope? Yeah, you never did tell me what that was. The Beacon of Hope was an orphanage of sorts. They took in children from all over the continent and offered them shelter and free meals. I was born in Varathia and abandoned as a child, so I was sent there at a very young age. The institution was run by a handful of very influential Lesathai at the time, who had deep ties with the Varathian royalty. Unfortunately, the true purpose of that orphanage was not to shelter children who had no home, but to exploit them because they had no family members left to ask about them. Though through repeated experimentation, the Lesathai were trying to find a way to turn regular humans into mages. So what you're saying is that you got your powers as a result of these experiments. I did. Although the methods they used had extremely low chance of success, forcefully injecting magical circuits into a human body is not only a very risky procedure, but also particularly painful. Of the thousands of orphans who were detained in that institution, only a handful of us survived. Due to the lack of results on their part, the Lesathai eventually stopped receiving funds for their project from the royalty, and they were forced to shut down the beacon. Continue. So, did they let you go after all that? No, they didn't. I was part of the rejects. Their prolonged experiments had somehow failed to kill me, but my magic was so weak at the time that they could barely conjure a snowflake. That I could barely conjure a snowflake. Even a snowflake would be cool, to be honest. They had no need for rejects, so they dumped us on other continents. They used their teleportation magic to transport each of us in various remote jungles across the world, with nothing to our names other than the clothes on our backs, and some knives they gave us to fend for ourselves. I was 12 at the time. I'm sorry, but you give me a knife into a wilderness or a jungle, chances are I'm probably going to die, let alone being 12 years old. So yeah, kudos to her. Kate's eyes shift to the left as she talks, and her gaze becomes more distant. She must be reliving those moments from long ago, as she is recounting them to me. I spent weeks in that jungle, hunting small animals and avoiding predators in order to survive. When I finally managed to reach civilization, I was greeted with terrified screams, and people running away at the sight of me. It didn't take me long to find out about banshees, and to understand that there was no longer a place for me in society. As time passed, I started encountering banshee hunters and white mages that wanted to have me purified. Luckily, by the time I started meeting them, my magical powers had increased considerably, and I became able to defend myself. I am really sorry. What happened to the other rejects? Yeah, she probably figures you're sorry, blah, blah, blah. Hey, just a quick beginning. In case you didn't notice, I am wearing different clothes, and the sun is out behind me, or setting. The first part of this, I was sick, so my throat was starting to like really get sore. So I had to stop, and then I'm just gonna tie it in with the magic of editing. And yeah, I'm still coming off my cold a little bit. My throat's still a little parched, but I'm gonna be drinking lots of water, and hopefully I can finish tonight. So yes, all right, and we are continuing off from where we go. Yeah, from where we started the first time. All right, here we go. What happened to the other rejects? The others didn't make it. They were all much younger than I was when we were thrown into the jungle, so they couldn't survive on their own, even with the daggers provided by the Lesathai. I spent the first few years of my new life trying to track the other orphans that were set free, hoping that at least some of them survived. But in the end, the only thing I could do for them was give them a decent burial. And Diane? Kate was somewhat taken aback by my question. I guess she forgot that she had already told me her friend's name. Diane was my best friend, and the only reason I decided to return to this hole, Kate says. She was one of the very few persons that reacted favorably to to their experiments. She and her brother were by far the most talented of all the mages that had been created in the facility. Due to her talents, she was assigned to the Lesethai's elite task force, and often served as a personal bodyguard to the highest ranked members of their group. Wait, if they became so strong, how come they didn't fight back? The Lesethai had some collars that they used to prevent mages from using their magic against them. The effects are somewhat similar to those spells preventing us from attacking locals in this tournament. I'm pretty sure that the artifacts used to cast these spells on us were also made by the Lesethai a few thousand years ago. Continue. Hey, Barry, can you hear me? I hear Darren's voice coming from the transceiver. I tap the device and answer him. Yes, Darren, I can hear you loud and clear. What is it? I really hate to interrupt you all, but if we want to get any kind of shelter before the sun sets, we should get going right now. Me and Kate exchange a look. All right, I say. We'll be right there. I tap the transceiver again in order to deactivate it, and we start heading towards Darren. What are you going to tell Darren? Kate asks me as we make our way back. I'm not going to tell him anything. Honesty usually is the best policy, especially in these type of games, I find. I'm going to tell him the truth. If we're going to keep traveling together, he needs to know. He isn't going to believe what I said to you. I have no proof to back up my claims. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. Kate doesn't look like she shares my optimism on the matter, but she decides to drop the subject for now. As we make our way back, we see Darren and Rose with their backpacks ready, waiting impatiently for us. Finally, Darren says, I hope you've said all you needed, because we were not taking any more breaks. Let's go. As we all walk side by side through the forest, I try to think of a way to bring up the subject of Kate's past. Should I tell Rose too? How are they going to react to all of this? Maybe I should wait until we make camp. Before I finish my train of thought, our journey gets interrupted again, this time by a violent earth tremor. Oh, what is it now? What is it, an earthquake, Darren says? Please don't be a dragon. Please don't be a dragon. Please don't be a dragon, Rose says, starting to panic. I don't blame her. As the earthquake intensifies, we start seeing a human figure in the distance, getting bigger and bigger, until it reaches a height of 50 feet. The giant man dressed in leather armor. He has a black beard that reaches down to his chest, and he has a big grin on his face. As he starts to speak, his voice is so loud that it completely drowns out any other sounds in a 5-mile radius. It doesn't really help that he's shouting either. Now that I have everyone's attention, the giant man says, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Hadrick, but my friends call me the Dwarf. I came to this tournament for only one reason, to test my strength against the strongest mages in the world. So what do you all say? Shall we have a fun little practice bout before we get our objectives? I'll be waiting right here for any challenges. I'll try to hold back as much as I can, but I can't make any promises. Ah, 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 in a loud, giant-y voice, I suppose. His laugh is loud and jolly, kind of like the laughter you hear from a friendly bartenders and innkeepers. What's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he realize what kind of place this is? The giant starts to shrink slowly as he's laughing, and eventually he disappears behind the trees. Darn, Darren says. This is some impressive shape-shifting. He must have had a lot of magical power to be able to turn into something this big. Do you have no knowledge of even the basics of shape-shifting magic? Kate asks him. You can't just turn to something 10 times bigger than your normal size, no matter how powerful you are. It violates the fundamental principles of shape-shifting. This was obviously an illusion. Oh yeah? Since you're so sure it was an illusion, could you perhaps care to explain how he managed to make such a realistic earth tremor while he was busy maintaining an illusion spell? How am I supposed to know that? Maybe he has an ally that specializes in earth magic. How is this even relevant? Something isn't right here. Although the fundamental principles Kate speaks of should indeed prohibit the use of shape-shifting in such a manner, an illusion isn't that much more probable either. There's no way any illusion could reach this far out, no matter how powerful the mage is. There must be something we're missing. Or perhaps the man who calls himself Hadrick managed to find a way to temporarily circumvent the laws of magic as we know them. Well, since I don't think both of them are right, I'm going to disagree with both. Yeah, both. I'm sorry to say that I don't really agree with any of you, I tell them. Both Darren and Kate simultaneously turn towards me. Kate is right about the fundamental laws of magic, or of shape-shifting, I continue, but an illusion spell would just be just as improbable. There are no illusion spells that can reach this far out, no matter how powerful or skilled you are as a mage. There must be something we're missing. Well, it doesn't matter either way, Kate says. This is obviously a trap. I honestly can't imagine how anyone would be stupid enough to fall for something so. Suddenly, the bodies of me, Kate, and Darren all start to vibrate loudly as we get enveloped in a white light. Oh no, Kate says. What? What's happening? Rose asks us. Rose, catch! Darren says as he throws her his transceiver. As soon as she catches it, the three of us get teleported away at the same time. The sensation I'm getting is the same as the one I got when I was first transported to this continent. It feels almost as if every fiber in my body is being decomposed and then slowly reassembled, while I maintain full awareness of myself throughout the entire process. Whenever I regain my senses, I find myself surrounded by a few dozen mages, with Darren and Kate standing right beside me. The mages are looking all around themselves, confused. It seems we weren't the only ones who were teleported here all of a sudden. I recognize one of the mages as being the giant that challenged us. He is surprisingly smaller than I expected him to be. I don't think he's much taller than 4 feet. That explains why they call him the dwarf. Judging by the position of the very tall tree I had chosen as a landmark when we left, I'd say we've been teleported right in the middle of the clearing where Hadric first made his appearance a few moments ago. Is this the dwarf's doing? Good evening, gentlemen. We hear a voice coming from above. We all look at the same time and see a little brat floating casually in the air with his hands in his pockets and his eyes closed. Eden. Of course it would be Eden. I am deeply sorry for interrupting you from all your daily activities, but I thought this would be a splendid opportunity for all the participants of this tournament that are in the area to get to know each other better. Then he raises his eyebrows and starts looking all around him, with his eyes still closed. Huh, he says. In all honesty, I was expecting this to be a trap of some sort, or at least a well-thought-out ambush, but it seems I was mistaken. How disappointing. Barry, Darren whispers me while Eden is talking. Take out your transceiver and tell Rose where we are. Tell her to come towards us, and we'll meet her halfway as soon as we manage to get out of here. Rose can wait until we're safely out of here. Okay, I'm on it. I kind of want to see what happens. Rose can wait until we safely get out of here. I don't want to attract any attention to ourselves. Darren doesn't really seem to agree with me, but he doesn't want to start an argument either, so he nods slowly. And who might you be, young Stillwater? An old mage calls out to Eden. Upon taking a closer look at the mage who just spoke, I suddenly realize that I know him all too well. It's impossible to live in the Western continent and not to have seen his face at least once in your life. His portrait appears almost every month in the newspapers, after all. The man standing in front of me is none other than the fabled Azarius, the Sage of the West. There are many strong mages in the world, but only 4 of them are officially recognized to be the elite amongst the elites. They call them the 4 Sages. Oh, I got that wrong. Whoops. Each of them represents one of the 4 major continents of the world. The Sage titles earned or maintained through yearly contests that are held by leading nations of each continent. Given that each of the 4 major continents is named after a cardinal point that represents its position on the world map, each Sage title also carries the appropriate cardinal point in its name. That makes sense, I suppose. The Sage of the West looks exactly as I've seen him in the pictures. An old man, almost 80 years of age, with a long beard as white as snow, holding a long wooden staff in his right hand, and wearing traditional wizard robes, all as well as a pointed hat. He is like a living example of what most people would imagine when thinking of a mage. Yeah, a mage or a wizard. Or Gandalf. Yeah, Gandalf. Eden looks confused, and he quickly turns his head left and right, as if making certain that there isn't another Stillwater floating beside him. Are you perhaps referring to me? He says to the sage. I am quite certain that I'm a fair bit older than you, Sage of the West. The dwarf named Hadric suddenly laughs loudly, grabbing everyone's attention. Ah, 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 ah! When I called out to everyone earlier, I was hoping for a few strong challengers, but I never dared to dream that a Stillwater would actually show up. How about it then? Are you up for a short sparring session to warm ourselves up for the tournament? Actually, I'm not participating in the tournament, Eden says, smiling. However, it would be disrespectful of me to decline your challenge. After teleporting you all here, he pauses. Very well then, a sparring session it is. But I wouldn't want to simply crush you with a flick of my fingers. That would be too boring. How about we both agree to use no magic for the duration of our battle? Ha! I like your style, Stillwater. We are in agreement, then. No magic until the end of the battle. The fight ends either when one of us can no longer fight, or when one of us gives up. The Stillwater smiles again, and he starts to slowly descend towards the dwarf. As he lands on the ground, there's a loud murmur coming from all the mages around the clearing. They all step aside to give the two combatants the space they need to begin their fight. The Sage of the West is watching the two of them intently, his eyebrows furrowed. I think. That is it. This is it, Darren tells me. This is our chance. Let's get out of here while everyone is watching the fight. Actually, I think we should watch the fight too. Alright, let's go. Two options. Darren's a friggin' dank. I ain't listening to him. I haven't listened to him yet, so no. Actually, I think we should watch the fight too. Oh yeah? And why is that? Give me one good reason. Gathering intel. Remember how Eden easily dodged all of your attacks the first time we met him? Since he isn't going to use any magic, this should give us some very valuable information regarding his martial arts training. Valuable enough to risk our lives for it? Yes, actually. You do realize we'll likely have to fight him by the end of the tournament, don't you? Shouldn't we take advantage of every chance we get to try and find his weaknesses, even at the risk of our own safety? Darren grumbles the way he does when he can't find a good enough counter-argument to throw in my face. Eventually, he calms down and steps forward to get a better look at the battle that is about to begin. Kate, who has heard our discussion, is also stepping forward in order to see the fight better. She is wearing her hood and covering her face in a green cloak, in order to hide the fact that she is a woman. Just as the two combatants prepare to lunge at each other, there is a very loud voice coming from my left pocket. Hello? Is anyone there? Can anyone hear me? Hello? Rose shouts through the transceiver. Crap! I completely forgot the fact the device was set at maximum volume. This is bad. This is really bad. Every single one of these mages is now looking at me, even as the two are about to start fighting. I quickly tap the transceiver in order to talk to Rose, but before I get to say anything, it is Eden that answers her question. Yes, Rose, we can all hear you, he says loudly. Is that Eden? Rose asks. Rose, listen to me, I say as I grab the transceiver from my pocket. We've all been teleported to where the giant appeared a minute ago. Do you remember where that is? Can you make your way to us? Yes, I remember, but I'm sorry, but I don't have any more time to talk. I'll fill you in on the details when we get here. Be careful. I turn off the transceiver to look all around myself. The mages are still staring at me. This is not going to end well, is it? Whoa, whoa, whoa. You gotta be kidding me. Another Stillwater, says one of the mages? No, this one's just an ordinary human, Azarius says. You could tell by the look in his eyes. What are you talking about, Eden asks, smiling. Of course he's a Stillwater. Didn't you all see him fight that dragon in the sky single-handedly a few hours ago? There's a loud murmur again, as many of the mages confirm having seen me duel the dragon. If I'm going to want to bluff my way through this tournament, then there will never be a better opportunity than this. Try and convince them that I'm a Stillwater. Yeah, why not? He speaks the truth, I tell them. That dragon was in my way, so I had to get rid of him. But you don't need to worry about that, unless of course you plan to stand in my way as well. The mages start talking amongst themselves, but they are hesitant to respond to my provocation. Continue. Pathetic, says a mage, who is wearing red robes and has a particularly crazy look in his eyes. There are dozens of you, and you're still hesitating? If you're all too craven to attack him, then I'll do it myself. The mage in red robes steps out of the crowd and takes his battle stance. I hope you will live up to my expectations, Stillwater. I intend to take your head as a trophy. Not if I have something to say about it, Darren says, as he steps in front of me, with his sword pointing towards the mage who was just talking. The healer in armor stands before me, asks the fire elementalist. This is getting better and better. At this rate, I'm just going to win this tournament well before they announce the first objectives. He raises his hands in the air, and an enormous spinning column of fire starts forming around him. Behold, hero! Behold the power of Felran, the strongest fire elementalist on the eastern continent. The pillar of fire is getting bigger and bigger, and the other mages are starting to get out of its way, to avoid getting burnt to a crisp. I see you've both already accepted your fate. You're not even trying to raise magical barriers around yourself. Don't worry, I'll make this quick. I can't really guarantee you it will be painless, though. Yeah. His laugh is just as crazy as the look in his eyes. Darren does not say anything, but he's watching the fire elementalist intently, with his sword in front of him. Die! The mage screams, as he sends all the fire towards us in the form of a beam. Just as the flame reaches us, with one quick slash of his sword, Darren sends all the flames back to their owner, incinerating him on the spot and turning him into ashes. Did you see that? Shouts one of the mages. His sword absorbs the flames and sends them right back at the other mage. They're too strong. We can't hope to beat them. It doesn't matter how strong they are, says a mage in white robes, with long blonde hair, who appears to be some sort of healer. We came to this tournament to win. We knew that what we were getting into. And besides, the Stillwater hasn't cast any sort of spell since we laid eyes on him. Do you think that's just a coincidence? Stillwater or no, you can't possibly fully replenish your magical energy in just over 2 hours after a fight with a dragon. He must be vulnerable. He must be in a vulnerable state. Now is the best time to strike. I highly friggin' doubt that. Are you willing to bet your life on that, White Mage? Walk up to him casually and attempt to intimidate him. Ah, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, okay. I put my hands in my pockets and start walking slowly towards the White Mage, trying to mimic Eden's casual demeanor and laid-back smile. As I approach him, the mages that appear to be part of his group are starting to panic. They're stepping aside in order to clear my path. When I stop right in front of the healer, looking at him with a smile on my face, I can see that his sweat is dripping from his forehead, just as I thought. With the exception of Darren, healers are bark and no bite. What's wrong? I ask him. Didn't you say this was the best time to strike? Well, I'm right here. Give it your best shot. The blonde mage attempts to grab his dagger, but his hand is trembling too much to be able to unsheath it. I can see the fear in his eyes as he desperately looks around him for some support from his allies, but they're all too scared to say anything. You're in luck, Stillwater, he says. Finally, I've changed my mind. I would much rather fight you on equal terms after you've fully recovered. I never really liked unfair fights. We'll see you again, soon. Come on, men, we're leaving. The White Mage heads for the forest, and about 10 or so mages are slowly starting to follow in his footsteps. After the whole scene has ended, I can see Eden smirk from afar, while he takes his leave as well by teleporting out of the clearing. Just as I was beginning to think that the danger was gone, I suddenly find myself surrounded by 10 rock golems, each of them being at least twice my size. So there was a powerful summoner amongst these mages. I was careless to let my guard down just because I was scared off a few weaklings. What's the matter, Stillwater? I hear a voice coming from behind the wall of golems. Why don't you try and walk up to my golems like you did with that cowardly healer? Maybe you'll scare them off. Barry, screams Darren, as he slashes through one of the golems and joins my side. There's still 9 golems to go, and they have us surrounded. Darren won't be able to destroy them all by himself, while also defending me. I need to do something. That's pretty good. Just a little food for thought. The last time I made this video, I told you earlier that I made it and then it got corrupted and all that aggravating crap. I didn't actually choose that one. This is a new one, so it's actually pretty interesting. I never read that before. So it's actually, I didn't really realize it that you can choose a different one. It'll give you a whole different set. I thought it might be just like a line or two, but actually that was the whole page. So that was actually really intriguing. Just to let you guys know. Try and fight the golems head on. Well, none of my stats are in strength, so that's not possible. I highly doubt it. Try and avoid getting hit as long as possible. I like that. Speed check. See, level 1. Perfect. I'm not going to win an arm wrestling match against one of these monsters anytime soon. There's no use trying to fight them head on. I'll just let Darren do his thing and try and avoid getting hit for as long as possible. Fortunately, my speed is more than enough to effectively dodge the rock golem strikes. They have very slow movements, and it's easy to predict how they will attack next. After dodging a few rock golems, I take a look towards Darren to see how he's doing. I am pleasantly surprised to find out that he's already dispatched 4 of them, and is moving on to his 5th. There's now enough room for me to maneuver around, and these golems are pretty slow, so they shouldn't be any danger to me anymore. There's several loud and painful bird screams coming from above us, and almost immediately afterwards, we see 5 large hawks falling on the ground at the same time, each of them having been impaled with at least 1 icicle through their chest. Kate is standing behind us with her hood off her head, and her signature cold look in her eyes. Yeah. Typical summoner tactics, she says. Distract the enemy with cannon fodder, and then use a surprise attack from above. I'm surprised you actually managed to survive this long without your knowing this, Darren. You must have been living quite a sheltered life while you were out on your heroic campaigns. Shut up, Darren says as he cuts through another rock golem. I was going to deal with those birds once they came down. Not everyone has fancy unlimited range attacks to use at their leisure. Whatever. One of the mages starts to scream very loudly, while pointing at Kate. Ah! A banshee! It's a banshee! Quick, kill her before she fully awakens. A lot of the mages who seem to be on the fence about this whole fight now are slowly starting to join the battle as well, in order to kill Kate. Haedrick is also quickly running towards us, probably looking to join in on the fun. The summoner mage is beyond himself with joy thanks to the latest turn of events. Now that they get a clear look at him, I see that he is about 6 feet tall, and he has long, pointy ears, green eyes, and blonde hair. I've traveled a lot in my life, but this is the first time I've actually seen an elf in the flesh. Usually, they are very isolated from the rest of the world and rarely go outside with the elven nation from the eastern continent. I hear that they've been invited here too, but I wasn't actually experiencing any of them to show up. Sorry. I guess this goes to show how much of an importance the Magium holds for mages all around the world. Ha! He says triumphantly. This is what you get for siding with a banshee, you lowly peasants. It's time for me to prove to you why us elves are superior to you in every way. I'm going to start by dealing with that monstrosity that killed my poor little hawks. The summoner prepares to call more creatures into the battle. But before he can act, Hadric places himself between Kate and her attacker and starts panting heavily. Hold on. Just, give me a sec, he says, while everyone looks at him, confused. Man, I just can't get used to running with these short legs. Is this supposed to be some sort of joke? Asked the elf. You dwarves have always had a sense of humor beyond my understanding. Step aside, if you know what's best for you. No can do, I'm afraid, Hadric says. I can't just stand idly by and let you hoodlums treat a lady with disrespect. A lady? I must admit, I've heard rumors about dwarves drinking so much they've had ale running through their veins instead of blood. But I never thought them to be true. I never expected that old saying about elves never leaving home without a stick up their arse to turn it to be true either. It's a crazy world we're living in, I'll tell you that. The summoner scowls upon hearing the dwarf's words. That lady you are so keen to protect is a banshee. She is a plague upon this land, which must be dealt with immediately. Oh, Hadric says, with a smug grin on his face. Is she now? If you're not going to get out of my way, then you can join these fools in their deaths. I've heard enough of your idiocy for one day. Just as the summoner and all of the other mages are preparing to attack, a loud shout from Azarius, the sage, freezes everyone in place. Enough! He shouts. There will be no more bloodshed this day. If any of you toddlers still feel like raising a ruckus, I am the one you'll be fighting next. Do I make myself clear? What? Asked the elf. Have you gone mad? Do you realize what will happen if we let this evil monster roam free? I am well aware of the consequences, and I am willing to take full responsibility for my actions. You are, however, free to challenge me to a duel if you believe your cause to be the righteous one. The summoner looks as if he were about to explode, but he ultimately decides to simply turn around and leave without saying another word. The other mages who are about to join the fight are now all sheathing their weapons. I am deeply sorry for not stopping this ridiculous fight sooner, my friends, Azarius says, looking at all four of us. In turn, I'm afraid that curiosity got the better of me. I couldn't bring myself to end this before getting the rare opportunity to see the great hero Darren in action. Well, yeah. Why are you helping us? You got all this wrong. We're not allied with the Banshee. Well, yeah. Why are you helping us? Well, I couldn't just stand by and watch these overgrown bullies attack a defenseless young lady. Defenseless? Excuse me. Kate shouts. Young lady? Darren asks, confused. Before they get finished their conversations, a mage dressed in black robes with a snake tattoo on his bald head interrupts him by making a loud tisk tisk sound. This will not do, Sage of the West, he says. This will simply not do. Azarius turns to him, smiling calmly. A follower of the god of death honors us with his presence, he says. If I did anything to offend you, then by all means, please state your complaint. My complaint is simple, Sage. My god requires more sacrifices to be had this day, and you deprived him of them by interrupting this fight. Oh? But I was quite sure that despite his title, Uruk, the god of death, only delves in necromancy, and is not actually ruling the realm of the dead. Why did he suddenly begin taking an interest in the affairs of people who are still alive? If you're simply in search of fresh corpses, I assure you that there are plenty to be found lying around these parts after yesterday's events. Do not question the great Ulrich's judgment, heathen. Your actions have angered my god, and now you will feel his wrath. The mage who is wearing a silver circlet on his head in green robes grabs the necromancer by the arm. Calm down, Zack, he says. There is plenty of time left to the end of the day. We can just kill some more people after we get out of here, and the number of deaths will still be the same. Unhand me, fool! I'm only traveling with you because my god ordered me to. Do not presume to tell me what to do. This matter has nothing to do with you or your god of fate. Continue. The necromancer pulls himself out of the ally's grasp and starts casting a spell. Tell me, Azarius, he says, have you ever heard of the Still Winter? I've heard of several accounts of it when I visited this continent in the past. Yes, the sage answers calmly, but none of them were what I could call reliable. Supposedly it was a great war that was waged on this continent between Stillwaters and Ancients some 600 years ago. Indeed, Sack says. But what would you do if I told you that the remains of the Stillwaters who died in the war can still be found deep underground, scattered throughout the continent? As the necromancer speaks, dozens of skeletons are starting to slowly surface from the ground below us. What would you do if I told you that I could bring all these Stillwaters back to life as my puppets, with almost all their former magical prowess still intact? The skeletons are now starting to attack all the mages around us, while they are running away, screaming in terror. The sky itself has darkened and has started literally raining fire and brimstone. Kate is struggling to keep an icy roof above our heads and shield us from the flames, but it's melting almost as quick as she is reinforcing it. What do you do, Sage? Tell me. Well, since you asked me so politely, Azarius says, smiling, what would I do is this. The Sage of the West smashes his staff on the ground, and I can feel a very intense vibration in the air all around us. The skeletons have suddenly stopped rampaging and are all just standing in place, vibrating loudly. After a few seconds, all of their bones shatter in pieces at the same time, as the rain of fire is brought to a halt, and the sky is starting to clear once more. Zack the necromancer appears to be dumbstruck. He desperately looks around himself to see if there isn't at least one of his undead minions to escape the onslaught. Apparently not. Continue. Yeah. That was an impressive spell, no doubt, Azarius says. But in the end, despite their ridiculous amount of magical power, these skeletons were only a bunch of old dried up bones bound together with magic. A powerful enough sonic attack can shatter any object as long as you correctly match its vibration frequency. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that spell of yours has a duration for about 5 minutes and can only be cast once per day. Unless you have some sort of trick up your sleeve, I believe there's a few persons who would like to have a word with you and your companion. All of the mages that were being chased by skeletons a few moments ago have now been surrounded by the necromancer and his ally. And you can see that they are thirsting for blood. I'm tired of your crap, Zack, says the necromancer companion. Every single time it's like this. I'm tired of always having to save your story behind. Next time we're in town, you're the one buying the drinks. The mage with the circlet on his head then throws something on the ground, which explodes and fills the whole area with thick gray smoke. Quick, says one of the mages. Disperse the smoke. Don't let them get away. An air elementalist blows all the smoke away, and we can see Zack and his friend a few hundred feet from us, running for the trees. After them, says the mage, and they all start chasing the two of them. Eventually, the mages disappear in the forest, and the only person still remaining in the clearing being me, Darren, Kate, Hadrick, and Azarius, and a young boy, likely in his late teens, who seems to be the sage's loyal retainer. It really never ceases to amaze me how easily people can be fooled by simple illusions like that, Azarius says, while stroking his beard. Wait, are you saying those mages are still hiding around here, invisibly? No, of course not. What would they have had to gain from still linger around here after what just happened? They did go invisible while everything was covered in smoke, but as soon as all the mages were lured away by their decoys, they simply teleported away. I figured they learned their lesson, so I let them off with a stern warning for now. Barry, Kate, Darren, we hear Rose shout from the other end of the clearing. Thank the gods you're okay. As she approaches us, she pauses to catch her breath. She must have been running all the way here. What happened, she asks us. How did you all end up in this place? It was Eden, Darren says. He teleported us here along with the other 50 mages. Probably in hopes that he'd get to watch us kill each other, but he eventually got bored and teleported away. Most of the other mages left in the clearing in a hurry a few seconds ago, chasing after some necromancer who tried to kill us all, but failed miserably. I see, Rose says. She turns toward Hadrick and walks over to him, offering to shake his hand. You must be the shape-shifting giant from before. I'm very pleased to meet you. My name is Rose. Did you manage to find the challenger you were looking for? Aye, lass. Hadrick grinning, as he grabs her hand and shakes it. I believe I have. Did he just take a quick glance towards me when he said that? Oh gods, I hope not. Maybe it was just my imagination. That is good to hear, Rose says, smiling. Then she turns towards Azarius. I'm sorry. Do I know you from somewhere? She asks him. You look very familiar. I do not believe we've met before, but my portrait appears in the newspaper every once in a while, so you may know me from there. My name is Azarius. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Master Azarius, says the young boy standing beside him. I do not need to be rude, but may I ask why you chose to intervene in this fight? Weren't you the one who taught me that banshees are foul demons that should not be trusted? Henry, I've told you many times before, there is no need to be so formal with me when you address me. You can call me simply Azarius. As for your question, before I answer you, I must ask you this. Do you remember the first lesson I taught you about banshees? Do you remember why banshees need to possess human or animal bodies in order to survive? Of course! The banshees were originally born on the magical plane of existence, but they were banished long ago and cursed to live the rest of their lives on the earthen plane. On this plane, it is not possible to live for long without a physical body. So the banshees were forced to adapt by stealing the bodies of other living organisms. Once it is seized by a banshee, the body stops aging, but due to the incompatibility between the banshee's soul and the physical body, the link between the two will decay over time, which forces the spirit to change hosts once every few decades. Very good, Azarius says. Now tell me, do you sense any kind of otherworldly vibe radiating from this woman's body? Does her magical aura appear to be in any way different from that of any other mage you've encountered in your life? No, but I don't understand. How can this be? The sage smiles. That is because she isn't a banshee. She is a woman with magical powers. A woman mage, if you will. What? Darren blurts out. How can you be so sure? You can't possibly tell me that you are basing your entire reasoning on something so vague. You surprise me, Heelanheimer, Azarius says, thoughtfully as he strokes his beard. The way you phrased your last sentence suggests that you do not believe... Excuse me. You do not believe this woman is anything other than a banshee, and yet you seem to travel alongside her. Most peculiar. Daring is looking a little flustered after hearing the sage's remark, but Azarius pays him no mind and instead steps towards me. What about you, Barry? He asked me. From what I could gather, the four of you are all traveling together. How would you define your relationship with a young woman named Kate? Ooh, my. Just met yesterday, so I guess you could see her as a friend. Oh, yeah. Oh, we're not actually in a relationship just yet, but we're getting there. Oh, ho, ho. I would stop right there if I were you, my friend. I can almost feel the young lady's killing intent from here. But still, you seem to be on much friendlier terms with her than your companion. Tell me, Barry, do you consider her to be a banshee as well? What? No, of course not. Interesting. May I ask you if you know about the Beacon of Hope? Yes, I take a short glance towards Kate before I continue. She told me everything. Wait a minute, Darren interrupts us. Didn't Eden say something about the Beacon this morning? Yeah, he said that Kate was a survivor from there, I tell him. A survivor, Darren asks? Yeah, now I remember. And he didn't want us to tell us what that meant. What is the Beacon of Hope anyway? To put it bluntly, Azarius says, the Beacon of Hope was a human experimentation facility disguised as an orphanage. The purpose of that institution was to create mages artificially. Kate's magical powers are a direct result of those experiments. She's what? Darren asks, seemingly in too much of a shock to be able to form a coherent sentence. Kate, you are a mage? Rose asks, surprised. Yes, Kate answers her. What did you think I was? Well, those mages we met in the forest this morning kept showing you were a banshee, so I kind of figured that's what you were. Everyone seemed to know what it meant, so I didn't want to appear dumb by asking. Kate laughs softly. I guess labels aren't really important to you, are they, Rose? She says, smiling. Still, I have to admit, Hadric says, grinning, I didn't expect to meet two survivors from the Beacon in the same day. This tournament is really something else. Two survivors, I ask him? You mean to say there's another artificial mage here on this island besides Kate? Aye, the dwarf says. And she's mighty strong, too. She took me out with almost no effort. I'm pretty sure that she was using lightning in the same way elementalists would use fire or water. Being an artificial mage sure has its perks. Do you know where she was headed, Kate asks. She and her friends in dark blue robes have a camp set up not far from here, Hadric says. From what I understood, they had no real plans to leave until tomorrow. Can you take me to them? Kate blurts out, perhaps a little too loudly. The dwarf looks slightly taken back by Kate's sudden request. Please, she adds, this time in a lower, pleading voice. Kadric says. You're asking quite a lot of me, lass. I only barely escaped with my life the last time. Is this woman your friend? Yes, Kate says. She is a very old friend. Hadric gives Kate a long, pondering look before he decides to speak. Tell you what, the dwarf says. I'll agree to lead you to your friend's camp on one condition. Name it, Kate says, her face suddenly lighting up. Hadric grins. Sorry. Man, I don't know why I'm so tired. It's only 8 o'clock. Your friend over there has to beat me in a duel, he says, as he turns towards me. Barry? Kate shouts, with a mixture of both shock and disappointment in her voice. You want Barry to defeat you in a duel? You can't be serious. Why, him of all people. Oh, excuse me. Well, I don't know if he's a Stillwater or not, but I'm quite positive I saw him single-handedly fighting a dragon in the sky a few hours ago. You rarely get to meet a worthier opponent. Kate looks at me hesitantly, probably wanting to see what my reaction is to all of this. I'm not looking for an all-out fight, Hadric says. We wouldn't want to wear ourselves out completely before the tournament even begins. A short sparring session will do. No magic, no weapons, just like my fight with the Stillwater from before. And since we're in a hurry, whoever makes the other one fall to the ground first will be declared the victor. The dwarf turns to me, grinning yet again. So what do you say, Barry? Are you in or out? Why not? Sure, why not? I'll give it a shot. Ha! That's the spirit, Hadric says. Barry, wait, Kate says. You'll get yourself killed. I'll be fine. I'll tell her as I move to align myself with the dwarf, leaving about 20 feet of distance between us. Kate doesn't try to stop me anymore, but I can see that she has an uneasy look in her eyes. The others are now stepping aside in order to give us space we need to begin our fight. There's something that's been bothering me ever since we got teleported here. I'm not sure if it's anyone else has noticed, but the dwarf has been shapeshifting this entire time. I can tell by the feel of his magical aura. This is not his original form. As far as I know, shape-shifting magic can only be used to change your size, or to transform yourself into another creature. It cannot be used to disguise yourself as someone else. What possible benefit could Hadric get from transforming himself into a dwarf? I then suddenly remember his first appearance. Of course! Now it all makes sense. Why didn't I realize this sooner? Shape-shifting magic cannot be used to turn yourself into a giant, but it can be used to turn yourself into a dwarf. He didn't use magic to become 50 foot tall. He just reverted to his original form. Hadric is a giant. The reason he is masquerading as a dwarf is likely because giants were never invited to this tournament, and he fears that they will kick him out if they find out the truth. This must mean that he has inhuman strength. When shape-shifting into something smaller than yourself, you usually retain a small part of your original mass, and most of your original strength. A single punch from him could blow me to bits. I need to be extra careful here. Even if he said this was going to be a sparring match, he doesn't really look like the kind of guy who knows how to hold back. Now that I know he is a giant, I can use this information to my advantage. Since he chose to transform into a dwarf and not a human, his body proportions are completely different from those of his normal body. He even said himself that he wasn't used to running with short legs. I'm willing to bet that this is affecting his sense of balance somehow. I just need to use techniques that aim specifically to knock him off balance. Hadric is now grinning and cracking his knuckles. Well, Barry, he says after a while, here I come. The dwarf comes charging directly towards me, without bothering to use any evasive maneuvers. Just before he reaches me, he picks up speed and appears right in front of me, almost as if he used teleportation. Instead of going for a punch, however, he attempts to prod me with his index finger. Reflex check failed. Ah, crap. Even for a prod, his strike was so fast I couldn't even dream of dodging it. Instead, I get thrown back about 4 feet before falling on the ground with a big thump. Barry, are you okay? Darren shouts as he rushes towards me. I'm fine, I answer him. Maybe just a little shaken up. Well, that was underwhelming, Hadric says, disappointed. I guess I was getting my hopes up a little too much for this fight. How about a rematch? How about a rematch, I ask him. Ha! You are tenacious, boy. I'll give you that. All right, then. A rematch it is. But I won't be going easy on you any more this time around. No, Kate shouts, as she comes towards us and turns towards me. Barry, I'm really sorry that you got hurt for my sake. I shouldn't have let you fight in my stead. Now she turns towards Hadric. Dwarf, Kate says, how about another deal? I will fight you instead of Barry, and if I win, you will lead me to my friend's camp. But instead of a fist fight, we will have a magic duel. A magic duel, Darren says, with a grin. Are you sure about that? I'm positive. Well then, we have a deal. You defeat me in a magic duel, I'll personally lead you to where you want to go. I'm just going to need a few seconds to get ready if you don't mind. Of course, Kate says. Feel free to cast any protection spells you want. I've already cast mine this morning. Kate was talking. The dwarf started rapidly gaining in size. The ground began to shake violently as he grew more and more, while his skin started to get covered in black scales, and wings started sprouting out of his back. When he reached the end of his transformation, Hadric had turned into a full-blown black dragon, almost the same size as Tyrath. There, Hadric says, baring his fangs to show his usual wide grin. Now I'm ready. Gods have mercy, Kate says, looking up at the huge monster that spawned before her. Ah! Rose starts screaming all of a sudden as she sees the dragon. Stay away! Stay away! Rose, calm down, Darren tells her. It's just Hadric in a shape-shifting form. It's not a real dragon. What's wrong, Kate? Hadric says. His voice is much deeper and louder than when he was in his dwarf form. You aren't going to back out now, are you? Kate frowns. No, Kate says. I was just a little surprised, that's all. But if it's a dragon fight you want, then I have no objections. Kate is now assembling her very own dragon under sculpted ice, with a size to match that of Hadric's. But this seems different from all other spells. This ice dragon is now standing before us, almost as if it were an actual living, breathing creature. This is on a whole other level compared to what she's cast before. She must really be going all out. You may have the appearance of a dragon, Kate says, but you and I both know that shape-shifting does not grant you the ability to breathe fire. And you can't cast any fire spells while you're in that form either. Let's see how long you last against my ice. Hadric grins as he soars into the sky. Kate's dragon follows him, and in the meantime, she starts building a cage of ice around herself, which she then uses to raise herself in the air in order to get a better view of the fight. The two dragons are diving at each other and attacking with their claws and fangs. Kate's reinforced ice seems to be holding up rather well against Hadric's attacks. I'm quite sure that Tyrath would have sliced through her ice dragon as through butter. I guess the King of All Dragons title was not just for show after all. Kate is now ramping up her attacks by also shooting Hadric with hundreds of icicles while Ice Dragon is still on his tail. Every time that Hadric tries to go for Kate, she moves her cage out of the way and sends her Ice Dragon to intercept him. Some of the icicles hit the Black Dragon in his left wing, and he starts falling from the sky. The Ice Dragon takes full advantage of this opportunity and dives right into his opponent. The two dragons crash on the ground, with the Ice one on top, pinning the Black Dragon in place with its claws. Kate is now slowly descending as well. Still in her ice cage, she looks at Hadric, waiting for his next move. Okay, I give up. You win, Hadric says, as he transforms back to her dwarf form. Upon hearing his words, Kate brings her cage down, and once she's safely on the ground, she dismisses both the cage and the dragon. Does this mean you'll grant me my request? Kate says, with a hopeful look in her eyes. Well, I can't say that I'm really looking forward to it, but a deal's a deal. Pack your bags, Kate. I'm going to lead you to your friend. Thank you so much, Kate says. I have a lot of money with me. I promise I'll make it worth your while. What are you talking about, Hadric asked her. I already said that we have a deal, didn't I? There's no need for you to pay me anything. Now hurry up and get your backpack. It'll be a lot harder to find your way through the forest once it gets dark. Of course, Kate says. I'll bring it. I'll be right back. My friend Zarius tells us, as Kate hurries past him in order to get her backpack. It's been a great privilege to meet you all, but I'm afraid we must take our departure as well. I have only one question before we leave. I couldn't help but notice that the four of you seem to be acquainted with the young Stillwater from even before he teleported us all to this clearing. Would you by any chance know any information that could prove useful if we were to ever face him in battle? Tell him everything I want, why not? We don't know very much about him, really, since we only just met him this morning. I tell him, from what I could tell, he has a ridiculous amount of magical power and can use multiple types of elemental magic. He also seems to be able to completely ignore the traditional laws of magic. When we first met him, he just bypassed all of Darren's magical protections and put him to sleep with a simple wave of his hand. Oh, and one more thing. He appears to be virtually undetectable when he turns invisible. I couldn't even sense a hint of his magical aura when he was hiding his presence. Interesting, Azariah says. As she smashes his staff on the ground, I feel a wave of air hit me in his face. Well, unless he has found a way to completely eliminate his physical presence from this plane, we can rest assured that he isn't at least listening to our conversation right now. I just used a sonar detection spell to detect all objects and persons in the area. and we are the only mages in this clearing. I also have another question for you. Do you know if he has any enemies on this continent? Yes, he does. Tyreth the dragon, I fought in the sky a few hours ago, was looking specifically for Eden and wanted him dead. I believe that he's made an enemy of the Lesethai as well. He told us to deliver a message to any ancients we find, and tell them to remember the Still Winter. Given from what I've heard you say about the Still Winter earlier, I can only assume that it's meant as a threat. I see, the old sage says, as he strokes his beard. This can prove to be invaluable information. If we are ever to make an enemy of him ourselves, thank you for sharing this with me. You're welcome, I tell him. Master Azarius, the mage's pupil says as he approaches us, holding a map in his hands. Azarius, the sage says. Just call me Azarius. Yes, Master Azarius. The sage sighs. Tell me, Henry, what is it? I noticed that there is an unusually large concentration of magic in and around this area, Henry says, while pointing at the lower side of his map. Perhaps it could be what we're looking for. Perhaps, Azarius says. At any rate, it's not very far from here, so I suppose we can make it up there before it gets too dark to see anything. Mark the location on the map. Understood. As Kate comes back with her backpack, Azarius turns to us. Goodbye, my friends, he says. I wish you all safe travels. I hope we'll meet again. Goodbye, Azarius. Goodbye, Henry, Rose says as we all wave to them. I'm sure that our paths will cross again someday. Henry looks back towards us with a surprised expression on his face. He probably isn't used to people acknowledging his existence as he travels alongside the Sage of the West. He nods curtly to Rose, and then hurries to catch up with Azarius, as they both slowly distance themselves from us and disappear into the depths of the forest. Man, when you're reading like long sentences and reading for a long time, your tongue just starts to fall out of your head. Whew! Well, Kate says, I suppose I should get going too. Me, Darren, and Rose all turn to look at her simultaneously. I guess this is goodbye, she says. We've had our ups and downs, but I'm really glad that I got to spend this short time with you. Thank you all very much for the patience you've shown me. Then she takes a deep bow and prepares to take her leave. Kate, what are you saying all of a sudden? Rose asks her. Well, you do realize we're coming with you, right? We are? Darren starts to say, but I hit him in the side with my elbow. I mean, of course we are. Naturally. What? Kate says, shocked. No, Rose, you can't. What about all the sick people waiting for you in your hometown? Oh, you don't need to worry about that, Rose says. With all the shortcuts we've been taking so far, I am days ahead of my original schedule. I would have never had the courage to take such a direct route if you hadn't been there to escort me. Accompanying you on your way to meet your friends is the least I can do to pay you back. And besides, Hadric said the camp you are headed for isn't that far from here. Isn't that right, Hadric? Aye, Hadric answers her. It's true. There you are, Rose says, smiling. Everything works out just fine. But I couldn't, Kate starts to say, but Hadric interrupts her. It's settled then, he says loudly, completely drowning out the sound of Kate's voice. We all go to see Kate's friend. Now come on, follow me. I'm going to try and take a shortcut. With these final words, we all grab our backpacks and hurry up to follow Hadric. Kate just stands there for a few moments, unsure of what to do, but then she decides to follow him too. And before long, she starts walking side by side with us again, as if our previous discussion never even took place. We walk in complete silence for a few minutes. Kate has always been the silent type, so I'm not really surprised about her. But I don't think I've ever seen Darren go for more than a minute without opening his mouth. He must still be in shock after what he's heard about the beacon. He's probably still having a hard time internalizing that information, given how adamantly he's been holding on to the opinion that Kate was a banshee until now. Boy, you guys are such a quiet bunch, Hadric says after a few more minutes of awkward silence. Fine, I'll break the ice then. Come on, ask me anything. How did you meet Kate's friend? We met by chance this afternoon while I was searching for a powerful opponent to fight. I mistook her for a banshee, and was excited at the prospect of having a one-on-one battle with such a strong challenger. Unfortunately for me, she proved to be a bit too powerful, and she neutralized me with a single spell. Her friend in the blue robes ordered her to finish me off, but she refused to do it. They eventually stopped trying to reason with her and just told her to make sure I don't stand in their way anymore. She defied the ancients? Kate asked, surprised. Aye, Hadric says. When I realized that she was actually more serious about sparing my life, I asked her if she was really a banshee. And that's when she told me all about the Beacon of Hope and about artificial mages. Could you tell us why you like fighting so much? Rose asks him. Why does a bird flap its wings? Hadric says. Why does a snake slither on the ground? I enjoy fighting because it's in my blood. My father was a warrior, and his father before him, and it goes to the same for all members of my clan. Mahad Salek, I tell Hadric. Mahad Makar, he answers me without thinking. Hadric then realizes the trap I've laid out for him and starts laughing loudly. You got me, Barry, he says. Well played. I'm sorry, I don't understand, Rose says. Glory in life, glory in death, I translate to her. Many of the giants of the northern continent I live and die by this credo, and some of the clans even use this to salute, as a salute between members. I read about it once in a book that described the races and culture of the northern continent. But why would a dwarf like Hadric know this credo? Rose asked, still confused. It's because he isn't actually a dwarf. He's a giant, shape-shifting as one. Bam! Bomb is dropped. What? Darren asks, utterly shocked. That's some really impressive deductive skills there, Barry, Hadric tells me. How did you figure it out? Well, ever since I saw you in the clearing, I could tell by your magical aura that you were already shape-shifting. But shape-shifting magic can only be used to modify your size, or to transform yourself to another creature. You cannot use it to disguise yourself as someone else, so I figured that you were needed to have some sort of reason to make yourself seem smaller than you actually were. It was then that I remembered that your giant form, from when you first called out to us. Normally, it should be impossible for someone to transform himself into a giant, because it would break the laws of shapeshifting. That made me realize that it must have been the other way around, and that the giant form is actually your original form. Hadric laughs again. Well, you found out my secret, he says. What are you going to do now? Will you report me to the organizers so they can kick me out of the tournament? Are you going to use this information to blackmail me to help you with other objectives? What? I ask him. No, don't be ridiculous. If I did that, then what were to stop you from also reporting for me having joined this mage tournament as an ordinary human? The reality is that the organizers likely just don't care. They didn't even bother to do some minimal screening of the contestants and let hundreds of ordinary people like me join this tournament without even considering the implications. Why would they care if they also let in a giant or two? I think you might be right, Hadric says. Well, I guess it's enough questions for now. If we go on like this, I might end up giving away my home address. Ha ha ha! As we advance through the forest, we start seeing some bright yellow lights circling around the trees. What are these, I wonder? I ask as I point towards the yellow lights. Overgrown fireflies. Ugh, my throat's starting to get a little sore. Oh, Rose says. Oh no, this isn't good. We need to get out of this place as fast as possible. Why, I ask her. What's wrong? These aren't fireflies. They're spirits of the forest. We must have entered their sacred woods by accident. We're not allowed to be here. Not allowed by whom? Spirits? Yeah. What are the sacred woods? They are areas within the forest where only animals are allowed to roam free. Only animals? Who decides these rules anyway? The great golden fox. Please, there's no time to talk. We need to get out of here before it's too late. Kate! We hear a woman's voice coming from behind the tree. Kate, is that you? As the woman who appears to be Kate's friend reveals herself to us, we see that she has a rather muscular physique, although it doesn't by any means make her look unattractive. She has blue eyes and short blonde hair that's standing up on her head, likely a side effect of her electrical powers. She is wearing tight leather pants and gray tank top. While her age seems to be close to that of Kate, she has also a burn scar on her left arm, which is likely a souvenir from a hard-fought battle. Diane, Kate says, unable to contain her joy. I can't believe it's really you. You don't know how long I've been trying to find. You idiot! Diane shouts, immediately silencing Kate. Why did you come back here? You aren't supposed to be here. Diane, listen to me. I came back here to save you. I came back here to take you away from this place. I don't need to be saved, Diane says, as she points to her neck, in order to show Kate that she is no longer wearing a collar. I am working with them of my own free will. What? But why? I don't understand. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you need to get out of here quick before the ancients come back. And stop looking for me, please. No, Kate shouts. I'm not leaving here without you. Yes, you are, Diane says, as her eyes start glowing bright, and electrical currents start forming around her. Kate, maybe we should retreat for now, I tell her, as I start to feel the hair on my skin stand up from the static electricity around me. No, Kate says. If she doesn't plan to see reason until I beat some sense into her stupid head, then I'll... Before Kate finishes her sentence, there's a sudden powerful surge of electricity in the air around us. Within which shocks us all violently and makes us all fall on the ground in unison. Out of the 5 of us, I appear to be the only one who still maintained consciousness, although I can barely move. Continue. As I look towards Diane, I can see 2 men in dark blue robes approach from behind her. They are both wearing their hoods, so I can't see their faces clearly. "What's going on here?" asks the man on the right. "More intruders?" "Look," says the one on the left. "One of them's that dwarf she refused to kill this afternoon." Apparently I knocked something over. He's brought his friends with him this time. He turns to Diane. "Well, what are you waiting for? Finish them off. Or are you waiting for them to bring even more friends to take revenge on us?" "No," she says. "I won't kill them." "Typical," says the man on the right. "Move over. I'll finish them myself." "If you dare lay even a finger on them, I'll murder you here and now," Diane says. "You dare threaten me, wench? Don't you realize what position you're in?" "Stop it, Zenar," says the man on the left as she puts her hands on the other shoulder as he. "You know full well that we are no match for her in battle. Come on, let's make preparations for our departure. We shouldn't linger here for much longer, now that our location has been compromised." "You're right," says Zenar as he calms down. "We should get ready to leave her as soon as possible." He then points menacingly towards Diane and says, "Lady Meredith will hear of this, I assure you." "I'm counting on it," Diane says, smiling defiantly. Zenar frowns, and then he goes to follow his ally back to their main camp. Once the 2 of them are no longer visible, Diane turns back towards the 5 of us, and she knows that I'm still conscious. "You are still awake?" she says, as she approaches me. "Strange. That high a voltage should have normally made you all lose your consciousness. So why are you the only one that was able to maintain your awareness?" When she gets close to me, she looks shocked for a brief moment and then smiles. "I see," she says. "You are Lesathoi. Kate must really trust you if she's willing to travel with you despite this fact." "Wait," I start to tell her. "Why are you—" "Take good care of her, will you?" Diane says, smiling, as she puts her finger on my forehead. "I'm counting on you to keep her safe from now on." She then sends a surge of electricity throughout my entire body, and the last thing I see is her sad smile. As I slowly close my eyes... Where did I get eyes? As I slowly lose my consciousness and everything goes dark. Well, that was quite the chapter. See what I mean? It's long. It's long. It's very good. It's just my throat was getting really dry from just being sick, which sucks. But that was very interesting. I found it on Lesathoi. We fought another dragon. We picked up another teammate. It's getting really, really good. I'm kind of curious, and I'm curious about the forest. I want to see this great golden fox, or I think that's what they call it, great fox. Anyway, I want to see what it's called, or what they are. It's going to be pretty good. But until the next chapter, hopefully it won't quite be as long, but who knows. And I'm going to make this all one long video, because I said I'm not going to split them up, because, yeah, it's up to you if you want to sit there through it all. It's up to you. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.